Okay, so we'll move on to discuss the humanism of Aristotle. The humanism of Aristotle. Remember that last week we looked at the humanism of Plato. So today we want to look at the humanism of Aristotle. Aristotle lived between 384. Aristotle lived between 384 and 322 BC. Aristotle lived between 384 and 322 BC. He was a student of Plato. He was a student of Plato. He was a student of Plato. Meaning that he studied under Plato's feet. But it is interesting that he would later disagree with some of the ideas of his teacher regarding the function and nature of literature in society. He would later disagree with his teacher, Plato, regarding the nature and function of literature in society. How literature should be regarded in society. Recall that Plato, in the Republic, did not have a favorable disposition to literature. Plato did not have a favorable disposition to literature. In fact, he had said that writers should be banished from the ideal republic. He had said that writers should be banished from the ideal republic. Because their work promotes falsehood, and he saw literature as fiction. But Plato disagreed with Aristotle. Aristotle disagreed with Plato. Aristotle disagreed with Plato. And would rather view literature as the art of imitating reality. Where reality is what we find in the real world. Where reality is what we find in the real world. So whereas Plato has seen literature as fiction, a lie, falsehood, Aristotle sees fiction as the mirror of reality, the reflection of reality, reflection of society. Aristotle's work emphasizes the elements of a literary work. His work emphasizes the elements of a literary work. His work emphasizes the elements of a literary work. it should be noted that Aristotle has studied in the academy. Aristotle has studied in the academy. Who owned the academy? Plato owned the academy. He has studied in the academy. But when he became a master, he founded his own school. When Aristotle became a master, he founded his own school. His school is the Lyceum. School is the Lyceum. Lyceum. The school is the Lyceum. The Lyceum is a school of scientific and philosophical thought and investigation. The Lyceum is a school of scientific and philosophical thought and investigation. The Lyceum is a school of scientific and philosophical thought and investigation. Apart from this, Aristotle also wrote the Poetics. Apart from this, Aristotle also wrote the Poetics. Major work is the Poetics. Right? It's the word Poetics. You can also do Latin Bible. It's part of the Poetics. And in the Poetics, Aristotle responds to Plato's accusation of poets and poetry. When we say poets and poetry, we mean writers and literature. Okay? In the Poetics, Aristotle responds to Plato's accusation of poets and poetry. So when I say poets and poetry, I'm referring to writers and literature. Writers and their works. They use poetry to mean literature generally. Okay? In the Poetics, Aristotle responds to Plato's accusation of writers and their works. Aristotle begins by agreeing with Plato that literature is an art of imitation. Aristotle begins by agreeing with Plato that literature is what? An art of imitation. And literature is an art of imitation. But in his case, literature is an art that imitates reality. That is his argument. Aristotle states that imitation is an art that provides enjoyment or pleasure to people. Aristotle states that imitation is an art that provides enjoyment or pleasure to people. Which is why the primary role of literature is to entertain. And human beings love the art of imitation. Okay? Even when we use the word representation, it's still an aspect of imitation. Because then you have the original, and then you have the representation of the original. Okay? So, imitation is an art that provides enjoyment or pleasure to people. And human beings naturally love what? Imitation. The art of imitation. And I said that this is why, till today, we consider the primary role of literature to be what? That of entertainment. That of entertainment. So Plato had believed that this type of pleasure, this type of entertainment that literature provides, this type of pleasure, this type of entertainment provided by literature can undermine the structure of society. Plato believed that this kind of entertainment can undermine the structure of society. It did not make for an ideal society. Plato believed that this kind of entertainment that literature provides can undermine the structure of the ideal society, can undermine the structure of the republic, the ideal republic, the Calipolis. Alright? Aristotle disagrees. Plato had believed that this type of pleasure can undermine the structure of society. However, Aristotle disagrees. Aristotle disagrees. He disagreed because, unlike Plato, Aristotle believes that literature is not two steps removed from reality. Unlike Plato, Aristotle does not believe that literature is two steps removed from reality. Okay? Plato had believed that you have the original world, which is spiritual, and then you have the world of sense experience, which is an imitation of the spiritual world. So this is imitation, this is fake, this is the original. And then the poet then imitates this one that is fake in his art. So you could see that by imitating this fake world, this one that is not original, he is two steps away from reality, because the art is two steps away from reality. But Aristotle believes that this is not true, that the artwork is not two steps removed from reality, but it is only one step. Why? Why is the artwork only one step removed from reality? Because Aristotle discountenanced the spiritual world, because we cannot see it. He said we should not consider it. Instead, we should consider this world as the real world. The one we can see, the world of sense experience as the real world. So the artwork then will simply directly imitate the real world. And so we'll just be one step away from reality. So it's not far away from the truth. Apart from this, Aristotle emphasizes the universal nature of literature. Aristotle emphasizes the universal nature of literature. Because poets depict what is possible or what can happen and not what had already happened. Aristotle emphasizes the universal nature of literature because poets depict what is possible or what can happen and not what had already happened. This is why we normally say that literature is higher than history. This is why we normally say that literature is higher than history. Because history tells us what has happened, while literature tells us what is possible. History tells us what has happened. Literature tells us what is possible, what can happen, what is likely to happen. So Aristotle believed that literature is higher than history. Aristotle believes that literature is higher than history, and he elevates literature over history. And he elevates literature over history. He elevates literature over history. Literature is also more philosophical than history. Literature is also more philosophical than history. Literature is also more philosophical than history because history expresses the particular while literature deals with the general. History expresses the particular while literature deals with what? General. While literature deals with the general. History deals with the particular. Okay? Apart from this, literature also expresses the ideal. Apart from this, literature also expresses the ideal. Apart from this, literature also expresses the ideal. I-D-E-A-L. The ideal. Which means things as they should be. Literature aims to express the ideal. Things as they should be, not things as they are. This is how Aristotle saved literature from the criticism of his teacher, Plato. That literature expresses the ideal, things as they should be, and not things as they are. Aristotle believes that tragedy should be elevated over comedy. Because great writers wrote tragedy while lesser writers wrote comedy. As far as Aristotle was concerned, he elevated tragedy over comedy and insisted that great writers wrote tragedy while lesser writers wrote comedy. Of course, this is Aristotle's view. As we speak, some of these views have been discountenanced because comedy is also as important as tragedy. But this is what he believed. All right? He believed that tragedy was a more serious art form that should be practiced compared to comedy. The reason is that great writers mimic the actions of great men. 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 And by great men, we're talking about heroes. Heroes, right? Heroes. Noble actions of heroes. Kings, queens, important members of society, VIPs. Whereas lesser writers wrote comedy which imitates the action of base men. Comedy imitates the action of base men. You like my head? Of base men. Okay? We need also to pay attention on Aristotle's principles on tragedy. Aristotle's principles on tragedy, since he's really concerned with tragedy. He had dismissed comedy as works of common people, works for common people, and tragedy as a serious art form that should be studied because it imitated the action of great men. For Aristotle, tragedy imitates nature. Tragedy imitates nature. Tragedy imitates nature. It is also a high form of art depicting noble characters and their noble deeds. It's also a high form of art depicting noble characters and their noble deeds. Depicting noble characters and their noble deeds. Depicting noble characters and noble deeds. The artwork has its own form. Aristotle believes that the artwork has its own form. Just like life. Just like life, the artwork has its own form. He believes that the work should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. For a plot, the work should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And all the parts should be organically related. And all the parts should be what? Organically related. Then he goes on to talk about the tragic hero. Aristotle goes on to discuss the tragic hero. The tragic hero. Tragic hero. The tragic hero is a man of good and admired qualities. The tragic hero should be a man of good and admired qualities. He should be loved and respected by all. He should be loved and respected by most, if not all, by all, right? If we must exaggerate. He should be a highly placed member of society. Should be a highly placed member of society. He should be a highly placed member of society. But then in all these admirable qualities, despite all these admirable qualities, the tragic hero should have a flaw. 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 Should have a flaw. You should have a weakness. Should have a weakness. What we call frailty in the moral constitution. Frailty in the moral constitution. Frailty in the moral constitution. And it is this flaw, this weakness, this frailty in the moral constitution of the tragic hero. It is this flaw, this frailty, this weakness, this frailty in the moral constitution of the tragic hero that will lead to his fall. That will lead to his fall, his disgrace, destruction, or even death. Or even death. This flaw can come in the form of hubris or amartia. It can come in the form of what? Hubris or amartia. Amartia. It can come in the form of hubris or amartia. This flaw can come in the form of hubris or amartia, right? Where hubris specifically refers to pride or arrogance in the tragic hero. Where hubris refers to pride or arrogance in the tragic hero. Where hubris refers to pride or arrogance in the tragic hero. Hubris refers to specifically pride or arrogance in the tragic hero that leads to his destruction. That leads to his destruction. Whereas matter refers to any weakness in the tragic hero, including pride and arrogance. Any weakness in the tragic hero, including pride and arrogance. which leads to his fall or destruction. Which leads to his fall or destruction. It is important for the tragic hero to fall so that we can learn a lesson. Because we must learn a lesson. So that the ordinary people, the common people, who looked up to this tragic hero will learn a lesson. There's a lesson to be learned in the fall of the tragic hero. And he has to be highly placed. So that his fall will be significant and known to all. Okay? So we're not talking about those who fall and even his village does not know that he has fallen. Okay? So the person has to be highly placed. So that once the person falls, it will be universal. It will be known to the whole world. So it has to be a highly placed person. Okay? Like a president. Like a star. So, and the idea that the person should be highly placed is based on the understanding that, quote and unquote, he is raised the higher that he might fall the heavier. It's based on the understanding that, quote and unquote, he is raised the higher that he might fall the heavier. He is raised the higher that he might fall the heavier. He is raised the higher that he might fall the heavier. Is raised the higher that he might fall the heavier. Is raised the higher he might fall the heavier. Right. Good. So that is the idea. That's the idea behind. Aristotle also talks about catharsis. But before we talk about the catharsis, it should be noted that the fall of the tragic hero is usually marked by peripetia and anagnorisis. It's usually marked by what? Peripetia and anagnorisis. The fall of the tragic hero is marked by what? Peripetia or anagnorisis. The fall of the tragic hero is usually marked by peripetia or anagnorisis, either by peripetia or anagnorisis. Where peripetia refers to the sudden reversal in the fortunes of the tragic hero. Where peripetia refers to the sudden reversal in the fortune of the tragic hero. Sudden reversal in the fortune of the tragic hero. A sudden reversal in the fortunes of the tragic hero, meaning that things might be going well for the tragic hero, and then suddenly events begin to turn against him. That's peripetia. It is this turning point that marks his tragedy. Peripetia. The sudden reversal in the fortunes of the tragic hero. Or it can be in the form of an anagnorisis. Anagnorisis refers to a sudden knowledge, sudden realization, sudden revelation, sudden knowledge, sudden realization, sudden revelation, which spells doom for the tragic hero. Sudden knowledge, sudden realization, sudden revelation, sudden awareness that implies the fall of the tragic hero. Maybe a secret, something hidden, something he did not know. Like it happens in Oedipus the King. Because he did not know, the tragic hero does not know his real parents. So the sudden revelation of who his real parents are is his destruction. Because he already married the mother and had children by her. So that sudden knowledge is an anagnorisis. So the tragedy of the tragic hero can come in the form of peripetia or anagnorisis. Catharsis. Aristotle believes that the audience emotion must be purged. In catharsis, the emotion of the audience is purged. Catharsis. Aristotle believes that the audience emotion must be purged. Must be purged. Must be purged. Purged. Must be purged. Must be purged. Must be cleansed. Must be cleansed. Right? Must be cleansed. Must be cleansed. Must be cleansed. Must be cleansed. And that all questions, must be clarified. And that all questions must be clarified. And that all questions must be what? Clarified. Must be clarified. As the tragedy is based on affecting emotion. Because tragedy is based on affecting the emotion. Or the reader or the audience. And if you know the definition of tragedy, I believe you do, it is a work of drama or any work of literature that is full of soulful actions and ends tragedy. So in such a work, the emotion of the reader will be charged, will be heavy. But in drama, Aristotle says the emotion has to be purged, has to be cleansed, and all questions must be clarified before the end of the drama, so as not to affect the emotion of the reader. So this is done through catharsis, which is the purging of the emotion. The purging of the emotion. Aristotle believes that tragedy must pursue the universal. Aristotle believes that tragedy must pursue the universal. Aristotle believes that tragedy must pursue the universal. Must pursue the universal, not the particular. Because literature deals with what could happen, not what has happened. Literature should pursue the universal and not the particular, because literature deals with what could happen and not what has already happened. This means that what could happen is closer to the truth or perfection, which the ancients aimed to achieve. What could happen is closer to the truth or perfection, which the ancients aimed to achieve. It's closer to perfection. Closer to truth, which was reality to the ancients. Aristotle also maintained that by the ancient we mean the classical guys. Okay? Aristotle also maintained that diction or language is very important in literature, in tragedies specifically. Because thoughts are expressed through language. Because thoughts are expressed through language. So we pause there for now and we move on to the humanism of Marcus Tullius Cicero. Marcus Tullius Cicero. Marcus Tullius Cicero. And in talking about him, talking about him, talking about Marcus Tullius Cicero, we want to acknowledge his abilities in rhetoric. We want to acknowledge his abilities in rhetoric. We want to acknowledge his abilities in rhetoric. Because he is seen as the best orator that ever lived. The greatest orator that ever lived. He is seen as the greatest orator that ever lived. So Marcus Tullius Cicero lived between 106 BC Marcus Tullius Cicero lived between 106 BC to 41 BC. To 41 BC. He was a Roman statesman. Orator. The greatest orator that ever lived. He was also a lawyer. A philosopher. He was a Roman statesman, orator, lawyer, and philosopher. Cicero rose to the position of consul. Cicero rose to the position of consul. Cicero rose to the position of consul. Consul is on the board. Which is the highest elected political office in the Roman Republic. Which is the highest elected political office in the Roman Republic. Consul is the highest elected political office in the Roman Republic. He is considered among the greatest orators in human history. He is considered among the greatest orators in human history. He is accredited with some of the most famous expressions. He's accredited with some of the most famous expressions. Or quotes. In the world today, one of them is One of them says, to be ignorant of what happened before you were born is to forever remain a child. One of them says, one of the famous quotes says, to be ignorant of what happened before you were born is to forever remain a child. To be ignorant of what happened before you were born is to forever remain a child. That's the quote. The quote talks about the need to study history, or the history of your society. You know the history of your society, your family, your village. So as to avoid the mistakes of your forebears. Another famous expression accredited to Cicero. Another famous expression accredited to Cicero is, where there is life, there is hope. Where there is life, there is hope. By way of history, it should be noted that we had the Greek civilization, and we also had the Roman civilization. The city of Rome was founded by two brothers. The city of Rome was founded by two brothers. Romulus and Remus. Romulus and Remus. And this was in 753 BC. And this was in 753 BC. It is said that Romulus killed Remus and named the city after himself. It is said that Romulus killed Remus and then named the city after himself. This is contestable, as there are other claims that the city was named after Roma, a woman. This is contestable, as there are other claims that the city was named after Roma, a woman. The work of Cicero that we want to study to illustrate oratory, illustrate the importance of oratory, is entitled De Oratore. De Oratore. The orator, which means on the orator. Which means on the orator. The orator, which means on the orator. The oratory, or on the orator, was written in 55 BC. The oratory, or on the orator, was written in 55 BC. But the actual setting of the work is in 91 BC. But the actual setting of the work is in 91 BC. The actual setting of the work is in 91 BC. BC is the year that Lucius Licinius Crassus died. The year that Lucius Licinius BC is the year that Lucius Licinius Crassus died. It is also the year that the social war began. Also the year that the social war began. It's also the year that the social war began. It's also the year that the social war began. The social war was fought between 91 and 88 BC. The social war was fought between 91 and 88 BC. Between 91 and 88 BC in the Roman Empire. Cicero writes to his brother Quintus. And the work is in the form of a dialogue. The text is in the form of a dialogue. As we said, this one was written in 55 BC. By this time, Cicero was politically less busy. As we said, the work was written in 55 BC. At this time, Cicero was politically less busy. At this time, he was considered the leading orator in Rome. He was considered the leading orator in Rome. He was considered the leading orator in Rome. He was the greatest of the Roman orators. As already stated, the work is written in the form of dialogue, as was the fashion with the works of that time. Cicero presents this work as a form of remembrance. Cicero presents this work as a form of remembrance of the conversation which had taken place at the Tusculan villa. At the Tusculan villa of Licinius Crassus. The temporal setting of the work, as already stated, is 91 BC during a brief holiday. 91 BC when Cicero had a holiday. The temporal setting of the work, as already stated, is 91 BC when Cicero was having a holiday. The Oratory was written at a moment of high political tension in Rome. At a moment of high political tension in Rome. At this point, two important questions were asked in the Roman Republic. The need for the reformation of the judiciary, the need for the reformation in the judiciary, and the need to grant more civil rights to the ordinary people. Some of the characters in the work are, some of the important characters in the work are, Lucius Scaevola, Lucius Scaevola is Crassus' father-in-law. Lucius Scaevola He is Crassus' father-in-law. We also have Marcus Antonius. Marcus Antonius. Marcus Antonius. It's another character in the work. We also have two young members of the Roman Republican Party. We have two younger members of the Roman Republican Party by name P. Sulpicius, Rufus, and C. Aurelius Cotta. Another character we have in the dialogue is M. Livius Drusus. Another member of the party. All these people visit gather at the Tusculum. All these people gathered at the Tusculan villa on a visit. For 3 days, which the work lasted, or which the work lasts. The first day is used for the discussion of the political situation. The first day is used for the discussion of the political situation. The first day is used for the discussion of the political situation. The second day is devoted to oratory. And the third day is for departure. The third day is the last day for departure after the final dialogue. The discussion is opened by Crassus. And he's the leader of the discussion. The discussion is opened by Crassus, and he's the leader of the discussion. Antonius is seen responding to him. Among other characters. It is reported that Scaevola returns to his villa at the end of the second day. I mean, does not stay till the end. Does not stay till the third day. Scaevola is on the board. Scaevola. Scaevola. Scaevola returns to his villa at the end of the second day. Then the morning of the third day, somebody should wipe the board. Arrived with Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, Strabo, and they take Scaevola's place. On the morning of the third day, Q. Lutatius Catulus arrives with C. Julius Caesar Strabo Vopiscus to take Scaevola's place. On the morning of the third day, Q. Lutatius Catulus arrives with C. Julius Caesar Strabo Vopiscus to take Scaevola's place. Then the discussion continues on the third day till evening. The discussion continues on the third day till evening. The discussion continues to the third day till evening the third day with Antonius, Caesar, and Crassus. Who are the major discussants? That's the person discussing. So what is Cicero's theory of oratory? These are the questions that the work answers. 1. What is Cicero's question or theory of oratory? What is Cicero's theory of oratory? 2. What are the necessary qualifications of the perfect orator? What are the necessary qualifications of the perfect orator? To the first question, the answer is could. To the first question, the answer is could. Let a man do as I, Cicero, have done, let a man do exactly as I, Cicero, have done, let a man do exactly as I, Cicero, have done, and he will thus, and thus only, achieve the desired result. And he will thus, THUS, and thus only, achieve the desired result, unquote. Cicero is of the opinion that the profoundest learning was essential to eloquence. Cicero is of the opinion that the profoundest learning was essential to eloquence. Profoundest learning. So the major subject matter of this work is to tell us who an ideal orator is. Because oratory is necessary. Because oratory is necessary in life. Everybody will at a point have to make a speech. And even you have to make a speech someday. So the work wants us to know who the ideal orator should be. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's an ideal orator, but we need to know who the ideal orator is so that we can strive to be like that. Okay? And in this work, Cicero is taken as an example of a very good orator that we should aim to imitate. His technique, his style, his methods, if well emulated, could lead to one being a good orator. So, what is essential to being a good orator? Learning, deep learning. That means you have to study to master the subject matter of all disciplines, not just your discipline. Cicero's brother Quintus believed that eloquence depended solely on natural gifts. Cicero's brother Quintus believed that eloquence depended solely on natural gifts supplemented by special training. Cicero's brother Quintus believed that eloquence depended solely on natural gifts supplemented by special learning. So that raises another question in the world. People who know how to speak, is it given to them as talent? Or can anybody who does not have the gift of oratory learn it and become a master like the rest, like the one who was gifted as a talent? Or if someone has a natural talent for speech making, if he does not receive special training, can he still be the best? So those are the questions. So the true orator is defined by Crassus as a man who, whatever may be the subject he is called to elucidate on, by language will speak on it with judgment, in harmonious language, in perfect style, and with accurate knowledge, all combined with a certain dignity of delivery. I'll tell that again. The true orator, excuse me, this is the class. The true orator is defined by Crassus as the man who, whatever may be the subject he is called on to elucidate by language. The true orator is defined by Crassus as the man who, whatever may be the subject he is called on to elucidate by language, will speak on it with judgment, in harmonious language, in perfect style, and with accurate knowledge, all combined with a certain dignity of delivery. The true orator is defined by Crassus as the man who, whatever may be the subject he is called to elucidate by language, will speak on it with judgment, in harmonious language, in perfect style, and with accurate knowledge, will speak on it with judgment, in harmonious language, in perfect style, and with accurate knowledge, all combined with a certain dignity of delivery. So by that statement, it is meant that a good orator is someone who can speak on any topic that is given to him, that is assigned to him. The true orator is defined by Crassus as the man who, whatever may be the subject he is called on to elucidate by language, will speak on it with judgment, in harmonious language, in perfect style, and with accurate knowledge, all combined with a certain dignity of delivery. That means we speak on it with judgment, means that you speak on it carefully, cautiously, with intelligence, and with absolute knowledge of the subject matter. You will not make mistakes. In harmonious language, you will be fluent in what he's speaking on. Perfect style. We have the style of delivery, a way of speaking that resonates with the audience. Accurate knowledge will not miss facts. And dignity of delivery will have style. He will be perfect in delivering the speech. Will be colorful. The orator is a man who not only knows everything there is to be known, but can also speak on every subject with power to persuade and to convince. The orator is the man who not only knows everything there is to be known, but can also speak on every subject with power to persuade and to convince. So the position of the orator is onerous, is demanding because of what has been stipulated here. The orator is the man who not only knows everything there is to be known. That means the orator should be widely educated. His knowledge should not only be confined to one field. He should know a bit of everything so that he can be in a position to speak on it. So the orator is the man who not only knows everything there is to be known, but can also speak on every subject with power to persuade and to convince. Because the ultimate purpose of speaking to people could be to persuade or to convince them to do something. So the gift of oratory is very important in politics and in leadership, in the running of society, in the running of an organization. The leader has to be an orator, one who can communicate expectations, one who can communicate values, one who can communicate outcomes. Without these gifts, it is difficult to command a people, to lead a people. So the orator is the man who not only knows everything there is to be known, but can also speak on every such subject with power to persuade and to convince. So in this, based on this, it is seen that Cicero himself is an example of this kind of orator. Cicero exemplifies this role. Cicero has qualified to occupy this position. And of course, no wonder he was a consul. An orator should have 5 qualities or qualifications. Excuse me. An orator should have 5 qualities or qualifications. They are rendered in Latin. They include inventio, dispositio, elocutio, memoria, and actio. The orator should have 5 qualities. Rendered in Latin: inventio, dispositio, elocutio, memoria, and actio. They are very close to English. They have English roots, so you can actually know what each means. But just by looking at each of them. Let's just take inventio. Inventio. Let's look at inventio. It means invention. It means invention and stands for a systematic search for argument. And stands for a systematic search for argument. And stands for a systematic search for argument. Inventio stands for invention. It involves finding out all there is to be said on the subject in hand. Finding out all that there is to be said on the subject matter at hand. So the orator should not go to speak without doing research. Because the greatest work that the orator does is behind the scene. You have a speech in 1 month's time. You have to prepare every day for that 1 month. So that even if that speech is 5 minutes, and you use 1 month to prepare for it, that is what you are expected to do. A 5-minute speech can demand that you use 1 month daily for 1 month to prepare for it. And so when you see the final outcome, people just think it is that easy. It is not. They should come and ask you what you did every day for 1 month in order to make that memorable 5-minute speech. That is what is involved. So it begins with what? Research. You have to do research to find out all that can possibly be said about that thing. Okay? Any mesmerizing success is not achieved on a gold platter. Alright? You go to a movie theater, you see a movie for 1 hour, 2 hours, right? Go and check. It must have taken them 3 years to produce that movie that you have seen for 1 hour. It must have taken them 5 years to produce that movie, 5 years of daily work to produce the movie that you are seeing in 1 hour. And it looks so wonderful. So any mesmerizing success that you see has hard work behind it. There's no other magic to it. There's no other magic. Somebody comes out with all A's. Go and ask whether the person was just playing around. No, there must have been a strategy. So it begins with research. You must find out. Every speech event begins with you finding out all the arguments that relate to the topic that you want to talk about. Everything that can possibly say the event should. The orator should have a universal knowledge. The orator should have a universal knowledge, not only the knowledge about things in your village. Okay? You need to know what is going on in America, what's going on in Europe, what is going on in Asia. So that when these issues come up, you can handle them. The orator should have a universal knowledge. The orator should have a universal knowledge, especially knowledge of moral philosophy and knowledge of law. The knowledge of moral philosophy and knowledge of law. Knowledge of moral philosophy is indispensable to oratory. Knowledge of moral philosophy is indispensable to oratory. Knowledge of moral philosophy is indispensable to oratory. The orator must be familiar with all the motives of human action. The orator is somebody who understands human nature. Knowledge of moral philosophy is indispensable to oratory. The orator must be familiar with all the motives of human action. You should be able to rouse or soothe the emotions of the audience. The orator is somebody who can arouse or soothe the emotion of the audience. The orators control audience. Orators control the audience. Because it is his job to persuade the audience, so he has to be able to control the audience. The orator must be sensitive to all different speech occasions. The orator must be sensitive to all or different speech occasions. Every speech occasion is different depending on the event and the purpose of the event. So the orator must be sensitive to that. He must know how his speech would affect the audience in any speech occasion. The orator must know how his speech would affect the audience. Is it to make them angry? Is it to make them laugh? Is it to entertain them? Is it to persuade them? Is it to inspire them? The orator must know and must decide beforehand how he wants to what he wants to achieve with the speech. The orator must comprehend all perfections. Must comprehend all perfections. The orator must have universal knowledge. And is expected to draw from this universal knowledge when speaking. For instance, you can say, this is what happens in America. In this situation, this is what happens in Europe. But this is how it happens in our country. So probably we need to change it. We need to adopt this other one and so on. So you must have universal knowledge to draw from. Okay, so we'll stop there for today.